everybody, welcome into the Westwood Living podcast. Tom Leyden with you, coming from the offices of Wellesley Testosterone with Bridget Hagen. How are you?
I'm great, Tom. How are you?
I'm good. This is really nice to be here. First of all, I did come through here and go through a series of testing, which we'll get into because I'm happy to be a little bit of a guinea pig so we can explain sort of how the process works. But I had a chance to, I guess, initially meet you at the beginning of calendar year 2024, something like that. So relatively new. Give a little bit of background about, there's so much to ask. I don't know where to begin. I guess, what drew you to this business, to this industry? Because testosterone has really become front and center for a lot of men as they live their lives here in Metro Boston.
Yeah, definitely. So a little background on me. I've been a nurse for over 10 years and a nurse practitioner for just about 3. I worked initially in intensive care and in the acute setting. As I became a nurse practitioner, I knew I wanted to focus more on preventative care and things that focused on optimizing quality of life. So the thing that drew me to testosterone specifically was that I had a family member who ended up going on testosterone. I saw such a change in their overall life experience that I was like, I need to be able to provide this for more people. And it has become kind of a newer thing that more people are getting involved in. You know, the past 5 years, a lot of people are talking about testosterone replacement and how it's really something that a lot of men can benefit from as they age. So that's what got me into this.
So your expert contributions in Westwood Living have been a little bit different than what I've been used to over the first 2 years, because you're very dedicated to citing your sources, right? So you can tell that you come from a very deep and thorough educational background. Give me your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I think everybody in medicine knows that things are all based on evidence-based practice at this stage. I did finish my doctorate last year, so did my own research-based work on that, and just understand how important it is for people to understand that these claims are coming from places of evidence, that we're not just talking about things that are hearsay or case studies. The reason that I feel so committed to citing my sources with this type of content especially is because it's gotten such a bad rap. When people think of testosterone, they think of bodybuilders and abuse, and they don't think about a legitimate way to use it to improve their quality of life. So it's really important to me that I'm citing these sources, that this is a legitimate option for men, and it's not something that is used only in forms of abuse. When we're thinking about how it's been used historically with bodybuilders and whatnot, we're talking about 10 to 100 times the doses that I'm prescribing.
Wow.
So a really completely different scenario.
So let's talk about the general target demographic. I would raise my hand and say I'm probably right in it, right? So you have people who have gotten through their 40s. They get to the point where like, wow, I don't have as much energy as I used to have, or I'm having a problem getting motivated to work out. And these are some of the symptoms that people who are in my demo experience that make them question what might be solutions. So when someone's thinking that way, they should pick up the phone and call you, because you can take them through a series of tests like you did with me. So walk through the process of what somebody would do to determine whether or not they have a testosterone deficiency.
Yes, I think what you're speaking of are just kind of some of those very general symptoms. There's actually this collection of symptoms kind of referred to as andropause, similar to a woman's menopause, where you start to see these hormonal declines that cause these kind of nondescript symptoms. You know, lower energy, like you said, workouts aren't as good. You're maybe losing some of that focus you had at work, not feeling as motivated to achieve things. Those are all symptoms of low testosterone. I think those are things that people don't necessarily think of when they think of low testosterone. You know, obviously the sexual side effects and things like that come to mind, but it's so much more than that. So if somebody's experiencing those symptoms, yeah, I would love for them to come see me. The best thing to do is really talk about the history and when did these things kind of start. You know, they typically do just kind of happen slowly over time, and it's not always super noticeable until people put a little effort into thinking back of, you know, what was this like when I was 30? That's when we start to see the decline start for men. At age 30, testosterone decreases at 1% a year on average. So by the time you do hit 40, like you said, and, you know, for some guys 50, like you're noticing a pretty significant decline. So I would talk to the patient about that. And then, you know, looking at some objective measures is really important. So looking at testosterone levels, we check over 20 labs when we do those initial labs. So we're not looking just at your testosterone. We're looking at full hormonal profiles, full kind of wellness optimization, looking at your cholesterol, looking if there's a chance that you're pre-diabetic, things like that a lot of other men's health clinics don't necessarily look at. We also have a body composition analyzer here that we look at that measures muscle mass, fat mass, gives us a good idea of where we're starting and where we're headed. We know that testosterone significantly increases muscle and should decrease fat percentage, even all things held equal. It's great if guys start exercising and doing more with that, but all other things held equal, we should see those changes.
The best thing you could ever get is a personal endorsement from somebody who has gone through this treatment. And I interact with somebody on a regular basis who said, oh my God, game changer. He said, I started testosterone treatment and it absolutely changed my energy. It changed the way I got through my day, the way I thought about my day. Not as much doom and gloom, so much more positivity as he approached his day. Are these some of the things that people can look forward to if they do engage in testosterone treatment?
Absolutely. I think that change in mood that you speak of is one of the more common and unexpected things that men experience. A lot of guys experience depression due to hormonal deficiencies. That's not to say that that's always what the cause is, but certainly by getting your testosterone in an optimal range, you're going to have less of those depressive symptoms and improvement in mood. It also is going to improve motivation. So kind of that drive to compete, to achieve things that's so innate in young men often that you kind of lose with age. And that's not a necessary part of the aging process. But I think those are the things that people don't realize. It's often described as just an overall sense of well-being. It's really hard for men to sometimes pinpoint what it is that's so much better in their life, but they just feel better. I've heard it described as like colors look brighter, things just seem better in their life, and they can't pinpoint it. But I've never met somebody who started testosterone replacement who wanted to stop.
And that's a key. Let's talk about that a little bit, because this isn't hey, we're going to do this for 6 months and we're good. This is a process through which it becomes a part of your everyday life. Address that.
Yeah, so absolutely. So if you start therapy and you want to continue to feel the benefits, you'll need to be on it for the rest of your life. People can come off therapy, so it's not to say that you can't stop it. What you can expect if that happens is to return to your baseline. If you've been on therapy for, say, 10 years, you just have to understand that that baseline may feel a little bit worse. If you started therapy when you were 40, you're coming off of it when you're 50, you can't expect to return to that 40-year-old baseline. It would be your new 50-year-old baseline. But yeah, so for men, it is a commitment. Any guy I've talked to, it's not life-changing. They work it into their routine. Most guys are doing this a couple times a week, and just kind of less than 5 minutes. You drop your medication. For most people who are injecting, draw it up, give it to yourself. That's it. It just becomes part of either their nighttime or their morning routine. They set an alarm or something, do it Monday, Wednesday, Friday. If you're using a cream, it's a little bit more labor intensive. You usually have to do it twice a day. But again, it's kind of just becomes part of that like morning and evening routine for guys. Like I said, I've never heard anybody who wanted to stop it. So it's one of those, it's a trade-off.
So what sets you apart? Wellesley Testosterone. Somebody comes here, a smaller office. It seems you'd get probably more personal attention, and that seems to be your goal.
Yeah, so our overall goal is quality and an attention to detail. So we don't want to be just another cookie cutter clinic. There's plenty of those out there. There's plenty of places that'll just prescribe you a general regimen of testosterone and sometimes other medications that you may or may not need because it's just the thing that works for most people. We don't want to do that. We want to base our product and model on evidence-based medicine like we were talking about. The newer evidence is suggesting that more frequent injections provide better results for people. So a lot of clinics in the area and just in general are still on that kind of once weekly or even once bi-weekly injection. A lot of times you have to go into the clinic to get it because they're given in the muscle, and that's just inconvenient for people. So we want to provide an option for people to be able to do at home, do easily, be less painful, and work better in the long run. We also, like I said, individualize all of our plans to our patients. So not going to just be this general plan that works for everyone. It's going to be, what are your goals? What are you trying to achieve? What's going to work in your life? If a guy travels a lot or something, maybe doing 3 injections a week isn't going to work for him. So we have to kind of go back, like, can we do it twice a week? Can we figure out how you're going to be able to travel with this? What's going to work? If there's somebody who has contraindications to some of the potential side effects, maybe a cream is a better choice than an injection. So really figuring out for that specific patient what's going to work best for them to get them the most results and also fit into their life. Like I said, we also use the objective measurements. I don't know of any other clinic around here who's using body composition as a means of measuring progress. So we get that initial composition with muscle, fat, free fat mass, things like that. And then we're able to see, when you come back in 6 weeks, has it changed? I've never seen it worsen for somebody, even like I said, if they're not changing their exercise routine, if they're not doing anything differently, I've always seen improvements in muscle mass, decreases in fat percentages, things like that. So it's great if you get a little bit more motivation to work out and, maybe clean up your diet and exercise more, but absent those things, you're still going to get those results. And it's nice to see that in numbers, because I think a lot of guys feel the changes, but at least me, I always like to be able to measure something as well.
You're a scientist
yes.
by nature. All right, broad question. Is this a tough demographic to crack? Because when you think about who you're trying to appeal to, in many cases, you got, I'll raise my hand, a stubborn guy who's set in his ways. So how do you convince that person that what you're offering is right for him?
To be honest, generally speaking, I don't do a lot of convincing. A lot of guys, I think by the time they're coming to me, have decided this is something they want and that they are almost hoping that they qualify for treatment. I do think that maybe that's a luxury of what we've done with our brand, where we're getting people who have already kind of thought through this process. I think that there are side effects to consider for people and you have to do a risk benefit analysis, but I think anybody who knows somebody who's been on testosterone replacement is already convinced. Sometimes I think for most people, it's just not if, but when they're ready to kind of take that plunge. I do think sometimes guys do need a little more encouragement, maybe. So, if a female partner is sending them here, like they do for a lot of health-related issues, they've gotten that little bit of a push. But I would say, generally speaking, most guys are seeking this out on their own and really just want to feel better.
So how do people find you? What are the steps to take? The first step, someone hears this, says, hey, I'm interested. What should they do?
Yes, I think the best thing is to check out the website. It has a little bit of kind of an overview about the different therapies that we offer. It's not all testosterone, but that is generally the backbone of most of our treatment plans. For athletes, if you're training for something, if you're recovering from surgery, we also have peptides and things like that. So it's not all testosterone, but that does tend to be the foundation of most of our stuff. So looking at kind of the different pages of our website gives you a little bit more information on what we're doing. We also have an entire research page if people are interested in the evidence-based aspects of this. I write a lot of blog posts on some of the things that people can expect to be interested in, like what are the benefits of testosterone, like what is andropause, if people are just interested in learning a little bit more before they come in. But then the next thing to do would be to book that initial consult. That doesn't mean that you need to start therapy. It doesn't even mean that you need to do labs. It's just a opportunity for us to kind of sit down, see what symptoms you've been experiencing, take a look at some of your composition, talk about what your goals of therapy might look like, what you're interested in pursuing, and then we can go from there. Do you want to do labs to figure out, if you would qualify for treatment if you were interested? And then typically most people, I've never had a patient not want to look at lab work. They want to get those objective measures as well. So most people do labs. Then we can either meet, just via phone if people want to come back in, review those lab results. And then if people want to start treatment, it's pretty easy. We order it from a pharmacy that ships it directly to their house. I usually have people come back in just so I can teach them how to do the injections themselves. If they're doing cream, there's not really any teaching necessary for that, so they wouldn't need to come in for that. But make sure that they're comfortable doing the injection. If they have a partner who wants to learn how to help them with it, they're more than welcome to come in. And then I see people usually at about 6 weeks after starting treatment. And then depending on how their treatment's going, if we're changing dosages or whatnot, between every 3 and 6 months thereafter. So I tell guys that first year of starting treatment is a little labor intensive on all parts, requires a few more visits, requires some learning, some education, but then after that, like therapy is pretty standardized. It's all sent to your house. Like I said, every 6 months, maybe even annually, depending how stable the person is. I'll see you in the office, do labs, keep an eye on things, but it's not after that first year, after somebody's pretty well established, it's pretty easy.
Very cool. A lot of what you do is very educational. So in a way, I'm very pleased that we provide you that forum where you can write the articles and you can educate people about this topic, because it's something that people who have entered my demo should be reading more about. So I appreciate the time. I wish you all the best of luck. And hopefully this continues to raise awareness of what you're doing here.
Great. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, totally. So that's Bridget Hagen from Wellesley Testosterone. And if you're watching this video, you can see on the slate, it has the website, wellsleytestosterone.com. It's got the phone number. So do some investigation. Visit that website. You'll see that a lot of your questions will get answered that way. And a very friendly person. So set an initial consultation and come on in here and do those tests and figure out if you might be eligible for treatment. So once again, Bridge, thanks very much. Those of you listening at home, if there's somebody else who you would like me to have a conversation with, just send an email, tleiden@bestversionmedia.com. I'll find that person, have that conversation, and share it with you right here on the Westwood Living Podcast Network. But for now, from the offices of Wellesley Testosterone with Bridget Hagen, I'm Tom Leyden. Thanks for listening.